Welcome to the Career Change Podcast, where you'll discover the frank and practical advice and resources that are already proven to work in the real world when it comes to changing careers or figuring out what business is right for you when you are a smart but likely also stuck, overwhelmed, or overthinking person in your mid-30s, your 40s, your mid-50s. I'm your host, Rikke Hansen, a career change advisor, entrepreneur, and former corporate HR professional with over 15 years experience of helping thousands of people just like you identify or create careers or businesses that are both meaningful and future-proof. Welcome home. Welcome to episode 33 of the Career Change Podcast, how to find business ideas when you are not Steve Jobs. Now, this particular episode is for you if you would love being your own boss, starting your own company that you're really excited about, whether that's product or service-based or a mix, whether it's on, offline or a mix, and no matter how small. It's for you if you could think of nothing better than being your own boss, doing your own thing, as opposed to having that bastard of a boss telling you what to do and when to do it and how to do it, or having to try to fit into a toxic, exhausting, long hours working culture in an industry or a profession or with a subject that you no longer care about. Sounds good? Well, it does. But this particular episode is for you when there is just one big but to all of this. It's for you that even though you would love to start your own business or you love the idea of starting your own business, you at the same time also feel stuck in the career change process because you deep down wonder if you are even cut out to start your own company. And you might even worry that you're not the, in air quotes, the entrepreneurial type. I get so many emails saying this. Hey, Rikke, I would love to start my own business. I've become an entrepreneur, but I'm just not like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. So what do I do? This episode is for you, right? Meaning that you don't currently see yourself as the innovative or creative, idea-sprouting, world-changing, disruptive, never seen before in the history of humankind kind of ideas maker. You know, the classic entrepreneurial type, peddled and preached on all the social media platforms, accompanied by pictures of Elon Musk or Richard Branson or Steve Jobs, right? And as a result, you likely feel really stuck and you wonder, well, how do I find business ideas? So in short, my friend, this particular episode is for you if you're wondering how to come up with business ideas. It's for you if you've not been able to come up with any what you deem innovative business ideas from scratch, or you worry about not being the idea type, or you're worried about not being the entrepreneurial type, okay? So keep listening. I've got you. And I can promise you up front, you can absolutely be the person you are right now. And you can still change careers. You can still start your own company, even if you're not the idea type, even if you're not like Steve Jobs, okay? And what I also would say, if what I talked about so far very much sounds like you, then you likely belong to the smaller of the three categories that my typical career change clients, they fall into. And this particular category is what I've coined or termed the no ideasta categories. And these are, you're likely a mid-career professional who would love to change careers or love to start your own business, but you feel stuck because you feel like you have no career change, no business ideas, or at least what you deem realistic ideas. All you know is what you don't want. So let's talk about that. In case you're curious, the other two much bigger categories of my clients, there are the overthinker category, what it says in the box, and then also the overwhelmer / multi-passionates. Okay, so those are my entire universe of the people I help, and why you might feel like these episodes are very much talking to you. Now, crossovers between the different categories, multiple personalities, are very normal. That's something I very much take into consideration and build all my programs around. So there are plenty of episodes no matter what category you fall into, but this particular episode I'm dedicating very much to the no ideas. But of course, you can all listen. There is always something to learn, and this is a juicy one. Back to you, no ideas. But I just would say, no wonder that you feel like a no ideas, right? You've likely spent the last 10 to 20 years doing the same thing, work in the same industry, and you likely not been paid for coming up with ideas, or at least not innovative, world-changing ideas, right? You've been working in the same industry that maybe you even fell into right after university because your friends chose it or your family expected it or you just kind of fell into it, right? A profession like often I see it's often things like law and finance where this happens. And your friends, they likely all work in similar industries and they have for as long as you have. So actually, when you think about it, your world is pretty small when it comes to getting input for alternative ideas, or even for getting out of your little bubble or comfort zone. And this is something I especially see happening once people are over 35, right? So here you are no idea star in your mid-30s, your 40s, your early 50s, and you want a career change. And for this particular episode, you would love to start your own business, but all you know is what you don't want. You don't want your current job, your current career, your current profession, your current subject, but you feel like you have no ideas as to what you do want. And let me get into your head here. On the occasion, rare or frequent, when you do feel like you get some ideas, then you always talk yourself out of them or you deem them unrealistic. In short, you don't really allow yourself to even engage with them, okay? But and this is important, you are secretly attracted to the idea of running your own business, even if you don't feel like the entrepreneurial type. And that's why I'm so glad you're here. And to those of you who asked me to put this episode together, because I've helped a lot of clients over the years who felt like this, still start their own company and still come up with business ideas. So we'll talk about that here. I have a lot of practical suggestions for you, okay? You might feel like you're not the entrepreneurial types, like you don't have ideas. That's not a problem. You can still go ahead and change careers and start that business. Now, in this episode, we'll talk about 2 practical ways to overcome this block that you have right now. And one is to bust a very pervasive and very damaging myths. And the other is a tool that you can use to get ideas. And both are important and they work in synergy. So how to find business ideas when you are not Steve Jobs. Point number 1 that we'll talk about is myth busting. You don't have to be like Steve Jobs to start your own company. You can just be a patchwork creative. This is where I want to bust this myth that you have to be the ultimate blank sheet creative in order to be an entrepreneur. And also I'll introduce you to an alternative concept that I've developed that I call the patchwork creative. Then we'll go into point number 2, where I'll give you a tool that I call what's your version of Airbnb. And that's showing you a way to start applying this patchwork creative concept and get great business ideas. So get excited. Let's go straight into point number 1, myth busting. You don't have to be like Steve Jobs to start your own company. You can just be a patchwork creative. Now, my friend, listen closely. I can promise you this. Being a Steve Jobs, uber creative type, visionary type, is not a requirement for starting your own company or for becoming an entrepreneur. I'll say that again. Being like Steve Jobs or being an uber creative, visionary, idea sprouting type is not a requirement for starting your own company or for becoming an entrepreneur. But here's the thing, you might deep down believe that. Okay, so get really honest with yourself here for a minute. Do you actually deep down believe that you're not the entrepreneurial type because you have to be like those ones that you see out there on social media, in the media, like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk? What I really want to do, if that's the case for you, let's pop that freaking cherry. Because this myth is right now keeping you stuck and it doesn't have to. And life's too short and you are getting on with it. So let's just drop and pop that cherry, okay? Back to the Steve Jobs myth. Here's what I can tell you, what I know for sure about starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur. I've had my own business ever since 2005 and I helped a lot of people start their own business. Here's what I know for sure. You do not have to come up with any ideas by yourself, as in you do not need to be able to come up with any ideas out of the blue or from scratch, ideas that never been heard before in order to get business ideas or in order to start your own company. Can I hear a sigh of relief, please? Pure creativity or the innovation or disruption gene is not required in order for you to be able to change careers and start your own business after 35. Phew. No personality transplant is required. It's okay to be you. You already have what it takes, okay? Just know that. So myth busting. I know there is often this idea that the entrepreneur, the business owner is very visionary, very creative, very artistic, and like I said before, comes up with ideas that never existed before in the history of humanity. Don't worry. I'm not like that, and you don't have to be like that in order to have business ideas or to start your own company. But let's face it, the reason why this myth is so pervasive, especially in the area of social media, is that all the quotes and all the photos and all of the stories are always about those unique ones, the outliers, the unicorns, the odd ones out, like, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Arianna Huffington, and Elizabeth Holmes. Right? People love reading about those. But remember, they are the minority. They are the outliers. Don't use them. There's so many other ones to look at. Don't use these outliers, these freaks of nature, so to say. Don't use them as a reason or as an excuse for why you cannot start your own business, and stop using them to beat yourself up with and for feeling so bloody average to compare it to. Don't be intimidated. Be you. Also, one more thing that's been really helpful for a lot of my clients is just to be really careful with what kind of words you use when it comes to the career change, the entrepreneurial vocabulary. For a lot of people, the word entrepreneur can be really intimidating. They're like, oh, but I'm not the startup entrepreneurial type. Well, don't use that. You're likely not going to start a startup anyway, right? A lot of my clients don't do startups. They do businesses. Startups are when you start something with a purpose of growing it really fast, making a lot of money, and then selling it off. That's sort of the traditional thing. That's not really necessarily going to be always your best option. Often it's going to be just starting a company or a consulting firm that you actually want to keep building. You want to keep pouring yourself into, like your baby, your child, that you grow and that you keep. So maybe a better word for you is just wanting to start your own business, or being a business owner or consultant. Just use a term that is helpful for you. What matters is that, you know what you want to do. Just call it whatever feels helpful to you. So don't use words if they intimidate you. Replace them with something else that feels better. That's sometimes really helpful. Now, since this episode is about how to get business ideas when you are not Steve Jobs, but rather you are no idea star, I want to break down a concept that I've developed and used over the years with my career change clients that they've told me has been really helpful for them in order for them to help, them realize that they have what it takes to get business ideas and to start their own company. And it's a concept that, for the purposes of this podcast episode, I'm calling the Patchwork creative. And remember, this is just one episode. This is quite a massive concept with a lot to it and a lot to learn, but I just want to simplify it here. So there's some context I'm not giving here, so just take what you can and just look at how it can be useful for you. And it's just one concept out of many. And obviously creativity is a massive area, so I'm just honing in on just one area of it here. Okay? So whenever you come across something new, rather than trying to find faults with it, just try to think about how could this be helpful for me? Okay? So one of the best ways to describe to you what a patchwork creative is to give you to give you its counterpart. What is the opposite of a patchwork creative? And let's talk about that. The opposite of a patchwork creative is actually what I call the mythical, the blank sheet creative. And this is very much what people they think about when they think about something being really creative or entrepreneurial. That's like a blank sheet creative. Someone that has this kind of pure creativity that just comes out of nowhere. You give someone a blank piece of paper, hence blank sheet, blank piece of paper creative, and as opposed to freaking out or not knowing what to do, which is probably what you would do if you're no idea star, this person will just start drawing from scratch, coming up with ideas out of the blue, innovative, disruptive. Steve Jobs be scribbling over that freaking piece of paper, probably drawing as well. We all know those types. If you're an overwhelmer listening to this, multi-passionate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there is this, and I really want to bust this pervasive myth, that in order to start your own company, you have to be that kind of blank sheet creative, blank piece of paper creative that you'll just know what to do with it right away. That does not have to be the case. But like I said before, if you're the no idea star, you've likely fallen for a version of that myth. And as a result of that, you're beating yourself up right now. So let's talk about a powerful reframe for you. It's okay if you're not a blank sheet creative or Steve Jobs. You can just be what I call a patchwork creative instead. So you might not be a born or pure creative idea sprouter or innovator or disruptor, but you already are what I call a patchwork creative. And the great thing is that you can, as a patchwork creative, you can start using that to find business ideas, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But the reason why I'm calling this patchwork creative, you might remember if you were a child of the 70s or 80s, and anyway, now it's back in trend, that patchwork squares are these little fabric squares in different fabric that you can combine in different ways for a really unique blanket, so a variety of colors or patterns or this and that. They're back in trend now, these patchwork quilts or blankets. They cost a fortune nowadays, and they're really beautiful. So if you still have the 70s aesthetics in mind, just know that they're a lot prettier nowadays. But the analogy is, as a patchwork creative who's not a blank sheet creative, as a patchwork creative, instead of trying, like beating yourself up for not being able to come up with a blanket design from scratch or spend years trying to find out what you want to make, you just start picking ready-made patchwork squares and start making your blanket, right? So you just look for ready-made patchwork squares and combine them, get cracking. You can still create something amazing and also put your own spin on it by how you combine them. But you find something that gets you started. You find those couple of patchwork squares that get you started, and off you go. You don't just insist on sitting there and doing nothing. Here's the thing, my friend, it's exactly the same thing with getting started with your first business. It's better to create something than nothing. It's better to start creating something than waiting for that one in a million idea right the rest of your life. The patchwork idea, knowing that you already are patchwork creative, you just need to find those squares. It allows you to get started. It allows you to start exploring rather than sitting there and beating yourself up for not having ideas. Okay. So get started. Getting started with your first business, with exploring, is where we need to get you to. Don't sit around waiting to get ideas if you are not the blank sheet creative instead. Right? You just need to realize your first business does not have to be groundbreaking. It's okay if it's not groundbreaking or totally unique. Often what you will find, and you'll find this if you start applying this, the best ideas often come when you are in motion, when you're taking action. And often what you learn from your first business will lead to the next. It'll lead to improvements. You just need to get cracking. So we'll apply this to finding business ideas for you. You don't have to come up with any business ideas from scratch as a patchwork creative. You can just pick from existing businesses, existing patchwork squares, so to say, or existing elements of squares of existing businesses or career concept. And let's face it, 99% of businesses, they have never come out of the blue. They were not unique concept. The vast majority of businesses out there, they're just a mashup of existing ideas and concepts and businesses and personalities and skills and all of that, right? We are all kind of standing on the shoulder of giants. Phew! Why make it harder for yourself, my friend? Okay? I find so often the biggest issue for no ideas and also for overthinkers is they just make things so much harder for them. And it's often back to being a perfectionist, right? Get over yourself. Just think for a moment about the big permission slip I'm giving you here. You don't have to start anything from scratch. Just look for those existing patchwork squares and start combining them. Just look for existing ideas, existing concepts, existing businesses, break them into individual elements, into patchwork squares, and start building with those. You can absolutely do that. So point number 1, myth busting. You don't have to be like Steve Jobs to start your own company. You can just be a patchwork creative. I'm hoping already with this myth busting being done, you feel better about who you are and you realize just how much freaking time you probably wasted beating yourself up about not being like Steve Jobs or whoever else your boogeyman is, right? You've already got it. You already are a patchwork creative. Let's work with what you already have. Okay, let's get you unstuck. Which brings us to point number 2, which is how you can apply what you've just learned and start finding business ideas, right? Start finding patchwork squares, even when you're not like Steve Jobs. So that brings us to point number 2, which is a tool that I call Watch Your version of Airbnb. And that's just one way to apply the Patchwork creative method. Okay, there are obviously many, many ways of doing it. This is just one that I'm teaching you. Watch your version of Airbnb. So now that you've realized that it's okay if you're not the blank sheet creative or you're not like Steve Jobs, then it is not a requirement to be that kind of type, to become an entrepreneur or to find business ideas. Let's start finding ideas for you, aka let's start finding patchwork squares. Just take the pressure off. Get over yourself, embrace who you already are. You're amazing, okay? So let's go hunting for patchwork squares for your first business. And just think about it. Like I said before, each existing company out there is kind of made out of a variety of patchwork squares. There's never just one idea only. So you can break down the ones that you're most consistently attracted to and just take the elements that appeal most to you and just leave what you don't like. You don't need to take it all wholesale. And what you then do, and this is key once you've got your combination of squares, then you add your unique spin or personality or skills, experience, whatever it is you want to put into it, and then you make it your own. Okay. Introducing what's your version of Airbnb. So one of the ways that I do this, what's your version of Airbnb inside of my programs is I give my clients, I actually have a Rolodex inside of your career change map where I show them exactly where to find the best kind of companies for this, the best sort of the companies to get ideas from, people, role models, all of that. I ask them to look at that, but you can do this yourself. Go out of and look at existing companies. And I want you to notice what businesses or types of businesses or people consistently inspire the good kind of jealousy in you. The kind of business you come across, business person you come across, or type of idea where you most consistently go, oh man, I wish I'd done that. I want what he or she is having. I find this concept of the good kind of jealousy to be really helpful if you are no idea star. Because oh my God, it bothers me so much when people go, just find your passion and just find what makes you really excited. If you are no idea star, that is not helpful information. Like you probably notice, it's freaking frustrating. What's much more helpful for you and what I've found with my clients over the years is what's really helpful if I tell them, notice when you get jealous in a helpful way, the good kind of jealousy, like, oh, I wish I'd done that. I want what she's having. I like that. That's a lot more helpful for you. So use that. What are the kinds of companies that consistently inspire the good kind of jealousy in you? Right? That is such a better place to start, right? Ugh, get on my high horse about this because I really want to help you. There's so much unhelpful stuff. Okay, this one works. So just think about, when you go and look at all these companies, what is it that you consistently feel most attracted to or curious about? What are the companies that are related to what you care about, your interests, the kind of things you're curious about, that you actually give a toss about, as opposed to maybe the spreadsheet work that's boring you out of your mind? And then notice and pull out the themes. And very quickly, will you spot some red threads, themes, commonalities, i.e. patchwork squares? So the reason why I call this strategy, what's your version of Airbnb, is because let's say for the first time you came across Airbnb in that list I'd given you. This is just one of the ways that I do it. But let's say you for the first time come across Airbnb and you're like, whoa, I wish I'd done that. I love the idea of this and I want some of that. Now, I'm using Airbnb here just because everybody knows what it is. If you don't, then you definitely want to go Google that because it's a brilliant concept. But we all pretty much, I would assume 99% of people listening to this knows what Airbnb is. You would probably maybe not pick such a big company to imitate, although you could. Don't let it intimidate you. You can just do it at your level. Make it right sized. But I'm just using Airbnb because everybody knows what it is. So what if the patchwork squares you are looking for here is to take, the concept and the elements of Airbnb that you really like, but then also put your unique spin on it and add your own squares. As in, you don't need to take all of the patchwork squares that make up Airbnb. Just pick the ones that appeal to you. So remember, you do not need to come up with anything from scratch. You can just pick from ideas that already exist. Okay, in this example, Airbnb, right? But what's important is make it your version, add things of your own. Now, Again, don't be intimidated by the Airbnb name, or often when you look through maybe companies that are massive, don't be intimidated by the scale. You don't have to run such a massive, risky, global, sophisticated platform. You can just choose to tailor the concept and fit it to what you care about and to what you bring to the table already and what kind of life you want. Make it right sized. Right? This is so, so important. Don't let people make you feel that unless you start the next Facebook or the next unicorn, there's no point. That's not really what I'm after here. I'm after you starting a business that matters to you, that you are actually, that's going to be enjoyable, that's going to give you the life to life, the day to day that you actually want to get out of bed for, right? Which is likely not Facebook. It's something a lot more exciting and a lot more right-sized for you. Whatever size you're interested in is perfect for you. But you take the best bits of the concept and then you add your unique twist in terms of what you want out of this and what you have to offer. And we don't have time to go into this, but this is something I do a lot with my clients inside of my program. We look at identifying the existing patchwork squares of your life so far, whether it's from your career, your life outside of work, what are you already bringing to the table? What do you already have to offer? Whether it's a skill set, a personality trait, an interest, whatever it is. But it's important that we identify that as well, because that's how you make those business concepts your own and how they become so enjoyable. So let's say that your unique take on Airbnb, the way you put your twist on it, is to focus on a highly specific niche that you really, really care about, that you can truly help, you can relate to, your skill set, your experience. It brings out the best of you, your past, your personality, what you care about, what you want to talk about, the problems you want to solve, etc. So how to make it your version of Airbnb? Let's say, in this case, you really like the Airbnb principles that you really like, the patchwork squares that you really want to pick, the fact that it's a platform, an online platform that's connecting house owners with private individuals, with a technical platform, but you want to be very specific about who your clients are, as that will very much decide what kind of day-to-day work you'll end up having and what kind of marketing you'll do and who you'll speak to and how you're going to get involved. So what you do is you niche down. So let's say, just for the sake of it, you are a health-conscious vegan. So what you want to do, that is exactly the niche that you want to appeal to, but you finally found a business idea that you could make your own by putting your own thing on top of it. So you come across Airbnb, and yes, what is your version of it? Well, my version of Airbnb, let's say this is you, is Airbnb for health-conscious vegans, right? So what that would mean would be, properties where there's no leather, no animal materials, no animal foods, and also healthy vegans. So these are people who like, let's say, juicing, dehydrating, blending. They want a yoga mat. They want a ready-stacked pantry. They want connections with the local health community, vegan community, yoga community, whatever it is. But it's a little bit like if you've ever followed a very healthy diet or you've been a vegan, there are a lot of things that you potentially have to travel with. That these Airbnb properties could already be stuck with that, with, all the substitute ingredients, the nutritional yeasts, the nut milks, whatever it is, stuck with vegan meals, all of that kind of stuff. This is just an example, but that will be your version of Airbnb, something you really care about. Versus if you think about it, big brother Airbnbs for anyone with a pulse and a credit card, right? You don't want that. What you want are just a few patchwork squares for the business concept, but then you add your own ones in terms of who you are, what you want this to be about, what the skill set is that you have. And that is how your patchwork blanket is coming together. This was just one example. It could also be Airbnb for families with lots of children and their unique challenges, in terms of toys or gadgets or space or neighborhood or nannies, etc. You get my point. You take an existing concept, let's say like Airbnb, but it could be anything. It could be several. As in, you don't have to come up with that from scratch. You just pluck those patchwork squares right out of what already exists out there. But, and this is the important bit, you then put your own spin on it, either by your personality, your interest, your skill set, your client group, whatever. The patchwork square mix is all up to you. You do not have to come up with ideas from scratch or wait your entire life out in a job you hate until you come up with some kind of ideas. Over to you. Go out there, headhunt for patchwork squares to combine with what you already have. Find concepts, break them apart, at your own. Be guided by the good kind of jealousy, my friend, as a no ideas that's really going to help you. Now, I would also just say, if you've been listening to the Career Change podcast for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of the power of entrepreneurship, of starting your own business as being a great career change vehicle, especially if you're over 35. Now, starting your own business is not for everyone, but it's one of the best options for a lot of people, especially those who think that they're not cut out for it, okay? And this is actually one of the things I help my clients do inside of your career change map, whether it's changing careers, starting a business. That's what I help them do inside of your career change map, finding those patchwork squares and identifying your own. So come over to your career change map and have a look. That's over at thecareerchangepodcast.com/options. Starting your own business or figuring out what you want on your own can be really intimidating. It can take many years, and a lot of people never really get there. So if you want professional help with figuring out what your best options are, then come on over, check out your career change map. It's over the Career Change Podcast. Then click the Work With Me button. You'll see all of the details there, and then apply. Let's get cracking. You do not have to do this alone. I've got a lot of experience of working with no ideas that's just like you, as well as the overwhelmers, the multi-passionates, and the overthinkers. But I just wanted to say that you do not have to feel like you're on your own. I can absolutely help if you want to get serious about this. But remember, you do not need to come up with business ideas from scratch. You can use the patchwork technique instead. That is how you can start getting business ideas without being like Steve Jobs. So my friend, go hunt for those patchwork squares and then add some of your own, whether they're new, whether they're existing, and enjoy being you. Enjoy being patchwork creative. You've already got everything that it takes. So go get cracking, and I'll see you over at thecareerchangepodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening.